Hi guys, and welcome to OG Cars, and in today's video you're back with me. Now, I haven't been on the channel for about a month because I had pneumonia. I'm okay now, I'm fit, I'm alive, and I'm braving it. So we're going to do a video on the Citroen AX because we tried to do a video on this car at Folly Farm when I first got it, but at the time I didn't know too much, I hadn't used it too much either, and a lot of you guys actually wanted to hear more about the AX, so I thought now would be the perfect opportunity, now that I've had it as a daily as a while, to tell you a bit more about it. So the Citroen AX was released in about 1986, I believe, and it went through mainly two iterations. There was sort of like a pre-facelift and a post-facelift. This is quite a late car. It's a 1995, which I think they started phasing them out at this point, so it's quite a late Mark II. And to talk about this model in particular, it is an Elation. So basically, Citroen, as lots of other manufacturers are doing, were but just churning out special editions, even if they weren't really that special. So let's just talk about the Elation model in particular. So you've got color-coded bumpers, you've got a sport/GT style steering wheel, you get the sunroof as standard. I think we had certain colors available as well, so this fairly nice sort of like dark cherryish, wineish red, and that was pretty much it. It came with these style wheel trims, and that was pretty much it. It was like a 1 litre 4-speed, so it's sort of like the base engine and gearbox style that you can get, but with a few bits added on. So you join me now on the inside. Now you may see there's a fairly jazzy pattern, and this was fairly common for 90s special editions as well. You get sort of like all these kinds of like blues and reds and just sort of like funky colours everywhere, just for fun. And you know what? Other than that, it's basically bog standard. But that said, these seats are actually really comfortable. So we've got these like side hugging pieces, and it comes forward quite far. I think the earlier seats were probably not quite as padded. As a guess, similar to sort of like the Pandas and stuff, the early ones were sort of like hammock style flat seats, barely any cushioning. Later ones, lots of cushioning, but this has even more cushioning, so it's actually really comfortable, really nice to drive. Otherwise in here it's actually sort of all standard, but it is a nice place to be. You've got 5 seats, you've got the 4-speed box. My gear knob says I've got 5 gears because the old gear knob exploded into 17,000 rubber pieces, so I had to buy a 205 GTI one, which is the same and fits on. Although I got a white one, not a red one, because I don't want to be too out there, obviously. But it does say I've got a 5-speed, which is a little bit too bling. So at some point, I would like to find a 4-speed gear knob. If anyone has one, please let me know. But I couldn't find any just generally out there for a decent price. I think you could pay a lot of money for a remade one from France, but it's like almost £100 or something after fees and stuff, which is a little bit too much. So ultimately, yes. And the other thing is the radiator. The radiator? The radio? I'm going mad. Kenwood radio is not an original, but it is sort of like a 90s, early 2000s style one, so it's sort of in keeping, and it's something that I'll be keeping because it works. And just to finish off on the Elation side of things, this is quite a rare model. Now, how many left isn't obviously that, how should we say, statistically correct, but there's about 28 on the road currently, obviously a fair few more sawn. But that said, I've not seen any other Citroen AX at all on the road while I've been driving this one, so obviously they are quite rare. Now, the AX in general came in various different models. You had the GT, the later GTI, you had the 1.4 diesel to start with, then the 1.5 diesel on the later one, and you had various other petrol engines, this one of course being the base 1 litre with the 4-speed, and you could get 3-door and 5-door models. And speaking of the Citroen AX, G had one as well, which coincidentally was also a 1 litre 4-speed special edition and locally found, just like this one. It was a Highlight, which was in Cardiff, which there's plenty of videos on. Well, there's a few videos on that car on this channel if you want to go check those out as well. Now, in all honesty, I was going to buy another AX before this one. It was actually a 5-door in the exact same colour, but it was a later post-facelift, of course, diesel, which admittedly I really wanted because I wanted that really fuel-efficient engine. But that said, unfortunately, before I could agree a sale, it had actually been stolen and burnt out. So unfortunately, that particular car is no longer with us. But when I was selling the 205 Rally to make up some money to pay off the Quattro, I decided that I needed a cheap daily, and this had been for sale quite locally for quite some time, and it actually got put on eBay at an even lower price, and I just put start bid on. I was like, you know what, if I get it for the start price, amazing. So I put a start bid on, and there it was. The auction ended, I was the only bidder, so I blipped over with G, picked up the car, and I'm very glad I did. So let's just go into a few of the pros and cons since I've owned this particular car. So firstly, on pros, it's actually a really nice design, and even though it's a small car, you've still got plenty of space. You've got this very cool rear boot design which has this glass incorporated onto the hinges and onto the plastic boot lid. So you open the boot lid and the glass comes up as one, and there's no other like separate frame or anything. That's how it is, and there's plenty of room for 2 adults and their stuff in here, or while I'm doing work, chuck a few computers in the back. It's ideal for that. Next up, I don't have to go and fill it up very often, which is ideal. It's got a fairly decent sized tank, and it's actually very good on fuel. Now obviously the Mini I had before had a tiny tank, and so I ended up replacing it with the MG Metro. Turns out that had quite a fairly small tank as well, so it's nicer to have a slightly bigger tank and even better on fuel, so that's ideal as well. Next up, the engine. Now, I don't want to shoot myself in the foot here, but the TU engine is a fairly reliable and renowned engine. It's been in loads of Citroens and Peugeots as well, before this car and after this car, and they kept it for ages, so it's a fairly reliable engine and fairly easy to work on as well. So again, ideal for me. Next up, it has to be said, a special mention to these wine holder door rack things, which is the perfect size for de-icer, and you could stuff like 7 packs of tissues next to it as well. Ideal. And also it has all 4 mud flaps intact, and I love mud flaps, so that's great because they can be quite hard to find sometimes. I also put this exhaust tip on, this little trim. Pucker. Let's just mention a con. This engine, the 1 litre 4-speed, yes, it's fairly frugal, but that said, it can barely pull itself up a hill, especially if you put several people in a car. You can forget getting up into the village. So, you know, it is a con, but at least it is fuel efficient, I guess. Okay, so a slight con, but mostly a go at Citroen because they still haven't stopped this issue, is lack appeal. I mean, I know this is a really old car, right? So I'm not going to complain too much about this model in particular because it's not actually that bad anyway, but there is lack appeal starting on the actual rails, and the car in general does have a few dinks and scratches, but that's just an age thing. But this lack appeal thing is something that, like on the C3 Picassos and stuff like that, they just haven't figured it out, and somehow they made it worse in that not only the roof rails, but literally the whole of the top of the car would just like lose its lacquer. But this car's actually not that bad, but ultimately it has started, so I'll mention it there. To be fair, I don't have that many cons for this car. It is actually really good as a daily. That said, the boot does feel a little bit flimsy. It is a cool design, but I've heard this from other people as well. Like the plastic boots are quite easy to like crack or break, or you can like break the glass, and then obviously your boot starts flapping around because it's only held on at the bottom and not up here. So bits like that, like the rear lights, they're fairly flimsy. I shouldn't touch it like that because it might fall off. I think the mounts, they can sometimes break. But yeah, I mean, little things like that is to be expected with the age as well. But ultimately, yeah, not too many cons. This is really quite a nice car. It's been a really good daily for me. I've used it for a few months now, and I've done a fair few thousand miles. And yeah, I'm really happy with it. So yeah, I'm starting to lose my train of thought. But ultimately, I have said my piece. The AX is a really good daily, and to anyone thinking about buying one, I highly recommend it. They're still very well priced. Even the GT models can sometimes come up at a decent price, and obviously the smaller petrols and the diesels make great dailies even now, because while they're older cars, they still feel modern enough, so why not? So we want to do another video on this car soon. Obviously we've had the entry video and we've had the service video on this car, but we have the Saxo, G-Saxo as well, so we want to do a little bit of a comparison, how the AX stacks up to the Saxo. What did Citroen improve upon in their next hatchback after the AX, and did they do it right? We'll find you in that video another time. There's probably going to be another couple videos on OG Cars soon, so please stay tuned, watch out for more, like, comment and subscribe. See you all in the next one.